Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Thanks for coming in tonight. Thank you, replay viewers, for watching. And thanks, YouTube viewers, for popping in. YouTube viewers, if you'd like to join and participate in the chat down here, just join Periscope. Just download the app to your phone or device and search for Penguin and Fish. I'm here every night at 9:30 p.m. Central. So I am hoping we can finish this embroidery tonight. We've been working on it forever. It's block 20 of the Splendid Sampler quilt along, and I'm hoping that we can just finish the embroidery here, and I think that's probably all we'll do tonight. Tomorrow, I'm hoping to take all the Fabri-Solvy, the stabilizer, off of this and are cleaning up our other bunny block. So, all right, guys, I'm going to flip you around, and we'll get going. Hey there. Hi, guys. Happy Friday. Hope you guys are doing okay tonight. All right, here we are. So we have we've been working a lot on this. All we have left is the little like stamen and pistils there. We just need to put in, I think we're going to backstitch these and then a bunch of French knots. So that's what we're going to do tonight. It's going to take a little bit of time yet. It's just that tiny amount of space, but it's still going to take time. And then I think I'm going to just trim the Fabri-Solvy off a little bit. This is our sticky Fabri-Solvy from Sulky. We printed the design on it, so you can see here's some of the design still. And then we stitched right on top of it, and it comes off in water. So tomorrow, I think I'll get all the bowls of water out here and the ironing board and all that, and we will take off the Fabri-Solvy and finish the embroidery part of this. There's still a lot of sewing to do. Not a lot, but there's still sewing to do on this block, so it won't be done yet tomorrow, but we'll get going on it. And I think we might have a little bit of time tomorrow if all we're going to do is take off the Fabri-Solvy. So I'm thinking we could make another block from the scraps out of Fabri-Solvy. And we did that once before, but this might be an opportunity to make another one of those because my scrap baggie is full and overflowing, and I need to make it into something. So I think that's the plan for tomorrow. We'll play with Fabri-Solvy and embroidery. So, all right, if you're new here, my name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make lovely and quirky hand embroidery patterns and kits. I'm the author of Sew and Stitch Embroidery and a fabric designer, and I'm here every night at 9:30 p.m. Central, and we're working on the Splendid Sampler quilt along, and we're on block 20. We're not on block 20, we're actually waiting for block 65 coming up on Sunday. But I'm getting some back blocks finished, and this is block 20. This is my oldest unfinished block. So, all right, I'm going to flip you around, and we'll get going. Oh, and I had a happy mail day today. My postcards came in again. So if you wanted me to send you a postcard, just let me know. Send me an email at emails@penguinandfish.com, and I will send you a little bit of our little postcard. This is the postcard that I've been using for all my paper piecing for the Splendid Sampler, so you guys have seen a little bit of it if you've been around here for the Splendid Sampler stuff. But yeah, I'll send one your way. All right, getting this into the hoop again. We just have that center area to go. The little dots there and the stems, or the stamen and pistils. That's what they're called, right? All right. I'm gonna do them all in white because I think it'll be just kind of a subtle place for your eyes to rest right in the middle because we have all these bright colors, and the white will go with this background has some white in it. Oh, you've been working on it for hours today. Yes, this is definitely a chill, watch a whole pile of movies or a whole series of something on TV and stitch, especially with all this satin stitching. That definitely took a while to make it through that. All right, I think we're fine here. So I'm going to get some embroidery floss here. I'm gonna do 3 strands, just because that's the thickness I've been using pretty much throughout this. We used 2 strands 2 nights ago on the black part of these ladybugs, just because the parts were so tiny. All right, I'm gonna take my 3 strands out of here. I've been doing that way where you just pull the 1 strand at a time, and that's been kind of fun. So I'm just separating the 1 strand, just picking any strand, kind of getting it away from the rest. Oop. There, like that. And then I'm just going to pull on it, and it bunches up like crazy on the end, but then it completely releases itself. It's kind of magical. So that's my second one, and let's get one more out of here. All right, there we are. And now I'm gonna set this one aside, and we'll put these 3 back together. And I'm just to put them back together, I'm just matching up the ends and just straightening it out again. I know, isn't it? It's pretty slick. One of those little design things that you would have never known that it was designed that way. It's just kind of fun. All right, I need a needle. Let me grab an embroidery needle here. Okay. So I'm going to, instead of tying a knot in the end, I'm going to weave in the end into a bunch of the backs of the stitches. So I think I'm going to start here. I'm going to do the line parts of them first, just because I kind of talked about this a couple nights ago, but when I'm doing French knots, I like to save them to the end if I can, because sometimes when you're pulling your thread through, your thread will make a loop, and if you're not paying close attention, it'll grab onto the French knots, because the French knots are so raised up off of the fabric. And then you have this thing attached to your French knot that you might not see, and, not fun. I haven't done the colonial knot much. I think the colonial knot makes a little bit of a, kind of a bigger knot a little bit. So, I'm just so used to French knots that I've just pretty much been using those. But you know what? It might be fun to try a colonial knot. I'm kind of thinking I might even have to look it up to figure it out again, since I haven't done one in so long. Let me see if I can figure one out. So it's like a French knot, except the way you wrap the thread is a little different. You kind of figure eight it around your, I'm just going to come up to the front. You figure eight it around your thing. So let me just see here. So for a French knot, you wrap it around twice like this with your needle pointing away. I think for a colonial knot, you kind of wrap it, no, that's the same. You do kind of like a figure eight. I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. It seems a lot flatter for you. Yeah, you know what? I'd have to look up how to do that stitch again. I haven't done one of those in so long, and I've probably only done it, like, a couple times. So I'd have to look. I can kind of picture it in my head. It's you have to do a figure eight motion with it. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Wrap it, and then somehow it gets wrapped around like a figure eight. But not like this. I don't know. I'm gonna have to come back tomorrow and figure it out, because now I'm gonna want to know how to do it. So I'm gonna just do French knots here. Oh, it's used a lot in candle wicking designs. Okay. Yeah, I think it's just a colonial knot. Like, I have that figure eight pictured in my head, but I can't once I have my thread in front of me, I can't figure it out. But I'll look it up tomorrow. You know what? Why don't we just look it up right now? I have my other phone here. That this might be kind of fun. I'm kind of curious. You know, I've like I said, I've done it before, but it's not something I do all that often. Colonial knot embroidery stitch. So let's just see what comes up. I'm just going to go to images. Yeah, okay, see, figure 8. So it's, we go over then under, but how do we get that way? That's kind of a weird way to hold. Wrap the thread in a figure 8 around the needle, but how do we start that? Oh, I suppose just like this. Okay, yeah, that's what it is. So we're going to point, I knew there was something like that. So you're going to point towards your fabric. In a French knot, you point away. Here you're going to point towards. So I'm kind of going from the left side underneath to the right. And then I'm going to hold that in place with my finger. Then I'm looping it around over the top from left to right. And that's making a figure 8. And then you do your knot. So let's just try one of those. You know what? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put a stack of postcards right here just so I can get a little closer. Closer to you guys when I do these knots. So there. Now I can set it up here and you guys can see a little bit better. But let's just do one of the colonial knots right here. So again, here's a French knot. A French knot, you point your needle away from where your thread comes out, and you wrap it around twice. Oh, if you want a postcard, send me an email to emails@penguinandfish .com, and then just tell me your address. So you're pointing your needle away from your fabric, and then you're wrapping it around like twice. You can do it more than once. But then after that, you point it towards your fabric, hold those loops that you just made so they don't come loose, and then you go back into your fabric, and you're still holding those, but you want to pull them tight now against your fabric like that. And then I hold it with my thumb because I don't want those to come loose, and then pull it through. All right, so we'll do a colonial knot right next to it. So I'm coming up again. And so colonial knot, we're pointing towards, and I'm going from left to right underneath. All right, so left to right underneath, and then I'm just gonna hold that there with my finger, and then I'm coming above the needle, left to right, and looping it around in a figure 8. So I'm just I'm left to right over the top, and then under the needle, and then back to the other side, right? And then I'm going to hold it there on my needle in place again. Then I'm going to put the needle into the fabric again, and I'm going a little far away from the first knot, just like 1 or 2 threads. And then I'm going to pull that onto my needle again, or just pull it tight to the fabric. And then again, I'm going to put my thumb there just to hold it in place, and then pull it through. So that's a colonial knot. I mean, they look so similar with the white close up here. So I'm going to just zoom in. So this is my French knot. I mean, it's really difficult to tell here. This is my colonial knot. I probably could have pulled it a little bit better. I'll do another colonial knot right here. So again, normally I would do all these stitches first because I don't want any loops to get caught on here, but we're playing around here, and then we'll go back. Let's see if I can do a colonial knot this close. That would be kind of cool. I'm not sure I have enough hands for that. All right, I'm coming up. All right, so let's get a finger here too. Okay, let me get it in focus again. Okay, there we go. So you're going underneath like that. Whew, this is a three-hand thing. This is why I set it down. And then a figure 8. So bringing this to the left. Well, I guess you can just kind of loop like that. That's easier. So grabbing it like that, and then circling around. Oops, I got caught a little bit. Circling around, and then bringing it back in. Pull it tight to the needle. There we go. So let's focus again. There's the colonial knot. So I'm gonna just do more over here. So we'll do the French knot. I'll attempt to do it this close again. Here, maybe I can get even higher. It's just so tricky. Here we go. It's tricky to do this without setting it down. So what I do is, that's too high now. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to make this a little bit easier. Stacking things up higher and higher. There we go. Okay. So here's a French knot again. So I'm coming up. And for a French knot, I'm pointing the needle away and twisting it around twice, and then pointing it towards, and then hold it on the needle. Go in 1 or 2 threads away from your hole that you pulled the thread out to begin with. Pull those loops tight to the fabric, and then hold it in place with your thumb as you pull the needle through. And there we go. That is the French knot again. And here's the colonial knot. So we're coming up out of our fabric. So this time we're pointing the needle towards, let's focus again, towards the fabric. French knot's away, colonial knot's forward. So you're going left to right under, and then looping around the top like that. But you can kind of do it in all one motion. So under and then over the top, with your needle. So you're kind of moving your needle instead of your hands. So under, over the top. And then going back in to your fabric, pulling that tight. It makes kind of like a funnier little loop. Doggone colonials with their knots and knitting. So there you go. And then again, you're going to hold it with your thumb so it doesn't go all over the place. And there you go. So French knot, colonial knot, pretty near the same. I mean, if you get real technical and look real close, there's maybe tiny differences, but I would just kind of go, these two are colonial knots, this is the French knot. So yes, very similar. So I'd kind of go with what you're used to. I'm going to try that colonial knot again without setting it down and see how that works again. Maybe I can get it into a rhythm. Maybe not though. It's awkward holding it like this. But under and then loop around and then back in. Now I'm going to set it down to pull it against the fabric. Oh yeah, no problem. I knew, like I said, I barely ever use this, but you know what? It's kind of slick. Maybe I'll play with them again. Maybe I'll just practice. Maybe I'll practice by doing the rest of these. I'll do these 3 colonial knots and this one a French knot. How about that? That'll be good practice. But yeah, I mean, very similar. If you were to do a bunch next to each other, I'm sure you'd start to see, like if it became your thing to do all these knots, I'm sure you'd start to see differences. But really, honestly, if I'm looking at just this white thread, I can't tell the difference at all. It's just how the loops go. How it's being held down is just a little different in both ways. But yeah, so that's that. So we'll do some more. We'll do colonial knots for these three, and oh, that's a good question. I wonder if there's a difference in how they hold up. You know what? That is a good question. I'm gonna have to do some research on that, see if someone did a test on that. But yeah, we'll do some more for practice right here, and then this one we'll do a French knot. But first, let's get all these guys stitched in. So I'm gonna shush all this out of the way again. But I think this white's gonna be pretty cute. Where do we leave off? Yeah, we're way up here, so I'm gonna start right here. There we go. That was kind of fun. I haven't done one of those in a long time. I've looked at them and I've, done a little, I look at embroidery stitches all the time because I'm always kind of like researching them and looking at them, but I always kind of stick to the basics, like the ones that people hear about all the time or the ones that people struggle with. And I know like French knots are, kind of a main stitch that is in most patterns, a lot of beginning patterns and stuff. And I know that people always struggle with it. So I've always just kind of stayed with the French knot. But yeah, that colonial knot's kind of fun too. It's fun to learn new stitches. I just like doing that. Too. Oh, I make the French knots look so easy. I mean, French knots, there are 3 things with French knots where you can go wrong, in my mind. And one is that you go in the same hole that you brought your thread out of. Oh, the colonial knot doesn't fluff out like a French knot. Okay, that's interesting because a French knot, you're tacking down like a couple loops, so sometimes you can see those loops. The colonial knot, maybe that gets rid of that a little bit. But yeah, so with French knots, and this would be with colonial knots too, if you go back in this exact same hole that you came out of, you risk pulling the entire knot through the fabric, to the back, because you're just pulling that knot. You made a big hole in your fabric and you're pulling that knot through to the back. So that's one of the 3 things. Oh man, I'm not sure I'm going to remember all 3. Oh, that's what you used to do? Yeah, so you always go, we'll do another one here. I know I said I'd do a colonial knot here, but let's just do another French knot. Yeah, because then I can talk about like the 3 things. So I'm bringing my little stack of stuff here again. So for the French knot, oh yeah, I remember. So the first wrong thing you can do with a French knot is point your needle towards the fabric, which is what we do with the colonial knot. But with a French knot, if you do that, it's not going to make a knot. Like it'll just come out to nothing. See, it'll just fall out. So yeah, so with a French knot, that's the first thing. Don't point your needle towards. You always want to point it away. So you're like completing a circle. Instead of like this would be like a teardrop shape in theory. You're going away. So that's the first thing that if you're having trouble with French knots, check this. So this is like the first thing to troubleshoot. You want to point your needle away. The second thing, so we're pointing the needle away, wrapping it around twice. The second thing is, like I said, don't put your needle back in the exact hole because you risk pulling the whole entire thing towards the back and making a hole in your fabric. You want to go like 2 or 1 to 3 threads over in your fabric. So see, I'm not going back in the exact same hole that I came out of there. I'm going a couple threads over. So that's the second thing. The third thing is not pulling this tight and holding down your knot. If you don't hold down your knot, you risk, I kind of don't want to do it because it's gonna mess up my embroidery. So that's why this is really important. If you don't hold down your knot or pull it tight to your needle like this first, you're gonna leave your wrapped loops kind of all over the place as your thread is going through them. And it's going to pull on them, and you're going to get a knot way earlier than you think, and you're going to have all these big loops. Yeah, it's going to be a big honking mess. So, so if that's the problem you had, then it's this. You're pulling the thread to your needle. This is actually, I've poked the needle in. You have a big moose knot. And so the needle's in the fabric right now, and then I'm pulling the thread tight to it, and then you really do want to have your thumb there to hold that down, because what that does is I'm holding that in place, because now the needle's not there anymore, so now without it against the needle, if I move my thumb, it could just come loose. So I'm holding it there while I'm slowly bringing the thread through, because I don't want the thread to pull it apart, and I can feel it under my thumb now, and now I can't pull anymore, and that's when I can lift up. So those are the 3 things that if you're having trouble with French knots, check those 3 things. Let's do it again. I can pull this one a little tighter. That one's pretty loose. So the 3 things again are point your needle away from your fabric, not towards your fabric. When you poke your needle back in, don't go in the same hole that you came out. Go a couple threads over. And the third is pull it tight against the needle and hold it down with your thumb as you pull the thread through. So those are the 3 things. If you're not doing those 3 things, you're probably having some trouble with your French knot. And since we're up here, let's do the colonial. Let's do one more French knot here, and then the other 3 will do colonial knots. All right. And if you notice, I like setting it down to do a French knot and the colonial knot because it's easier to have my hands free to hold my thread like this. So going away from the fabric, looping around twice, going back in the fabric a couple threads away, pull it tight to the needle and the fabric, and then hold it down with your thumb as you bring your thread back through. And there you go. 3 little French knots. All right, so let's jump over to here, stitch these guys, and then we'll do colonial knots for those. Unless you have more French knot questions, we can do that again too. So, here, giant stack of stuff. Look how tall it is. So I can get the camera a little closer. Or my embroidery a little closer to the camera. All right, let's get focused again. I do have an embroidery stand that I think I'm gonna test out. I've never really used one before, but I'm gonna test it out to do, I wanna do short videos that are just like quick, here's how you do a French knot, or quick, here are the 3 things you might be doing wrong with your French knot. Just like really quick videos that are, a minute or less, that are more, flashy than these live things. Than these live periscopes. And I think the embroidery stand will help me be still, so I'm not like moving around and I can still be this close to you guys. So we'll see if that works. I'll have to break that out and show you. It's kind of interesting, the embroidery stand. I just haven't used it yet. It actually gave me a bunch of ideas on how I would want to design an embroidery stand. So it's, just a little differently. Because I would like to, I immediately saw things like, oh, this is odd, or this is kind of weird. I would just do this instead, but I haven't found anything like that, so I don't know. Maybe I'll have to have a friend prototype one up or something. We'll see. All right, almost ready to do some more knots. I'm gonna bring my giant stack of stuff here again and stand up. You should do an embroidery quilt along. Have small blocks with your embroidery designs. Well, I'm thinking about doing embroidery quilt along after we get through the Splendid Sampler, because I have patterns of the entire alphabet of cute little animals with the little letter underneath, and I have a quilt design that I'm finishing up for it. So I thought it'd be fun. We could all go, not all, but if you're interested, we would stitch every letter of the alphabet with a cute little animal, like alligators and hedgehogs and all if you go to penguinandfish.com, you'll see them all there. But I thought we could just stitch all of them and then make the quilt. I thought that would be maybe a fun thing to do. So I'm thinking that we would wait till after the Splendid Sampler, just because that's kind of where my time is right now for these evenings. But yeah, so I don't know, thinking about that might be kind of fun. Trying to kind of plan how we would do something like that. All right, so some colonial knots. I've set it down again here. So colonial knots, you point towards your fabric, not away. So that's one big difference between the French knot. So loop under and then around. So that's kind of the quick gesture of it. But if we break it down, it's go under from left to right, and then you're looping it over from left to right, and then under from right to left. And that's your, there, now it looks like a figure eight, right? But to do that figure eight, you have to go under first, and then wrap it around. And I'm just doing, to do that fast loopy thing, instead of bringing instead of holding it with my finger here and bringing this hand up, I'm bringing the needle towards it. So I'm catching it and then looping it around. It kind of feels a little bit like crochet, actually. So that's the colonial knot looping, pulling it tight. It pulls differently to the needle. It feels a little different than a French knot. And I'm still holding it with my finger there, my thumb. And there we go. And let's do 2 more. I like doing these with 3 each. I think that's cute. All right, under and loop around. Good, tight on there. And we'll get 1 more in there. This circle's smaller. It probably only needed 2, but I like it. So point the needle towards, loop and around, and back in. So it's definitely a different gesture with how you loop it, and like I said, where you point the needle and everything than a French knot. But yeah, so sometimes, let's see if I can see it here. So these are French knots. So sometimes with a French knot, let me see if I can zoom in. Sometimes with a French knot, you'll have like your little loops here, like your 2 loops will get really loose. Like here we go. So now they just kind of look like kind of loose, I don't know, little loose loops that are kind of just tacked down. You might see that with yours, that it's just kind of 2 bigger loops. I think the colonial knot helps take care of that, is kind of what we were saying. It's kind of more of a ball versus 2 loops that are just tacked down with a little piece. It's hard to tell here. But, sometimes yours looks like cones. Oh, that's interesting. Your colonial knots? Huh. I'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, so try them both. See what you like. I'm curious if your French knots look like cones. Oh, that's interesting. That might be just from, those loops being loose. I'm going to try pulling this without holding it down. See, it wants to come apart. You go really slow, I suppose. Oh, that's what you meant by fluffy. Yeah, exactly. So, with the French knot, sometimes you have those 2 couple loose loops. Yeah, that's the fluffiness. So yeah, these colonial knots seem to be taking care of that a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. If you end up, if you are embroidering tonight or tomorrow or something, I'd love to, if you're testing out which you like better, colonial knots or French knots, I'd love to hear. hear what you think is better. But yeah, I mean, but remember those 3 French knot things, and you know, remember it with the colonial knots too. I mean, the biggest thing is, yeah, just holding it with your thumb. Otherwise, you're gonna make a mess. The other 2 ways you can kind of correct yourself, but if you get those loopy knots all over the place, that mess from not holding it down with your thumb, it's a really hard one to correct. Like, you may have to pull out stitches and cut your thread and all that. Whereas if you pull a knot to the back, it's like, oh, whoops, I guess we'll just redo that. I mean, if you're not pointing your needle the right way, I mean, that'll take a little while to figure out that you have that wrong, but you won't be messing up your whole embroidery as you figure it out. But yeah, if you're not holding your thumb here, you can mess up your stitches pretty quick. All right, one more. Ooh, I'm gonna have like just enough thread. That's always fun. All right. And there we are. And tears followed by anger. Exactly. And that sucks for sure. With when your embroidered knots get all over. I'm kind of tempted to add a few more in here. I wonder if I have enough thread for that. I kind of don't think so. Yeah, we can try. I'm gonna jump up over there. Oh, I'm close. Let's just, this is the bigger flower, so I kind of want more stuff on it. So I'm gonna do colonial knots, because I think the colonial knots are a tiny bit bigger too. Or they seem to be, so we'll do that. I used 3 threads in the satin stitch, in this particular satin stitch. All right, let's do one more here. Embroidery's better with sound effects. All right, and we'll sneak one more over here too, I think. Let's get it on this side. There we are. Crowding them in. Would they be sad? I think they'd be very happy. There we go. I like that. So we added. There's 4 in each of these, and at 3 in each of these, which makes sense because this is a bigger flower, and it had bigger circles here. So we really mashed them in there. But oh, I love the texture of that. I think it's just so sweet. I was gonna do the satin stitches, but we've done so much satin stitch that I wanted to bring back the knots, and we had the little knots in the guys here too. So I'm gonna just tuck in my thread, and then I'm just gonna trim this a little bit to prep it for tomorrow, and I think we'll call it an early night. That was fun though, playing with those colonial knots. Like I said, I haven't done those in like years and years, and hardly at all. So that was neat. I'm glad we looked that up to figure that out. But yeah. So the big difference, really, to start out with that is your needle. Like your needle with a French knot, you're pointing away from your fabric. With the colonial knot, you're pointing towards your fabric before you do your wrapping. And then the wrapping is a little bit different. The ladybugs just look black because of the black French knots are pretty big in there. I even used only 2 strands of floss for that instead of the 3, which I typically do, and I still think they're too big. And there was actually 5 dots in the pattern as well, and I only put 3 in, and it still is pretty hefty. But I did only put red in an outline around it, so I suppose if I satin stitched it in, you might see a little bit more red, but really I'm thinking not because the French knots really kind of fill up the space. So I think on Periscope here you might not be able to tell so much, but I think if you check it out on the YouTube after this at Penguin and Fish Movies, you'll be able to see a little bit of the red around there. But yeah, kind of wish I would have even went with one strand of floss for the French knots, because they're still a little bit big, even though I went to two. So, but there we are. Here is all the embroidery. I'm really happy with these knots. They turned out, they're so high up. They turned out cuter than I thought they would. So, all right, I'm going to take it out of the hoop here. Let's scooch these out of here. Yeah, I think try one strand. And like I said, I just put in 3 as well, and there's 5 spots for them. I would just start with 3 and see how that looks, and move on from there, I think. All right, so I'm going to just quickly trim some of this excess, and, you know, I think I'm just going to use my tiny scissors here. You know, that's not going to work very well. Let's get the big one out. And I probably wouldn't need to do this, but it does help once you put this into the water to not have tons and tons of excess all the way around it. So you want to be very careful. I don't want to cut my fabric, and I don't want to cut any of my stitches. Yes, they are microscopic. They are smaller than my pinky, for sure. So, all right, just trimming some of that away. I'll hold it up when I put the camera on me again, and you can see how small they are. Because it's kind of hard to tell when you don't see, you know, a person next to it. I mean, you can see my hands, but it's still hard to see proportion, really. But once you get a face there, then it's like, oh, wow, yeah, that is really small. Yeah, I'm going to be super careful when you're trimming this to not snip into your fabric. And again, I don't really need to trim this close, but I think it will make the process a little smoother tomorrow. Alrighty. I should be a hand model. Well, that's nice. Except for this hand. This has all my, like, writing bumps all over it. Oops. And, oop, it goes this way. No, it goes this way, man, I'm messing it up. All right, and here we are. So this pattern still gets the little corners. Oh, I have super tiny hands. Like my ring finger is like a size 4 and like 3/4. It's impossible to find like fitting rings. So here I have these corners to do and this little border yet, but embroidery is done, and that took a while. So I'm excited though. We'll take off this Fabri-Solvy tomorrow, and we will finish up the bunny embroidery as well. The bunny, we just had to dab with some water, taking off the thread, and then we'll cut it. We'll cut this one down to the size it's supposed to be, and we'll cut the bunny down. So bunny will be completely done tomorrow. This one will still have sewing to do at some point, and I think I might try and fit in making more of that fabric from all my scraps. So here's my overflowing. Here's one of my overflowing things. So I've been saving my scraps from this Splendid Sampler, and let me just show you quick what I'm hoping to make. Gotta get that binder out. So this is the first binder. This is binder 1 through 50. I think I have it in the front here. Oh, this is my first block. Oh yeah, so it's kind of like this Be Brave embroidery. I thought I had the other one here too. Oh yeah, it's back here. So let me pull these two out. Well, I'll just leave that there so I can put them back. But we're going to be doing this where we just put down a bunch of, I know memories, right? This is from forever ago. Where we put down scraps, and here's the other block. This is the block out of my Splendid Sampler scraps already. and we put some Fabri-Solvy on top, or I have a piece of muslin, like a scrap fabric, and then we lay out the pieces on top however we like, and then we put Fabri-Solvy on top of that. And then we stitch like a million times through and then take the Fabri-Solvy off. So this is kind of like a little bonus block. So I think we'll make another one of these tomorrow and then take the Fabri-Solvy off of everything. That would be fun. So I'm going to actually just leave these out for tomorrow. But yeah, so a quilt out of this. I know, what are these, just like a quilt out of all these crazy things. So I want to make, I'm going to have a lot of these, I think, in my final quilt, because I want to use up all my scraps for it. And this block took about this much of scraps. Like I had this thing full and it only used up, that amount. It was kind of crazy. So my quilt's going to be like 10 by 11 blocks, I think. And so the extra 10 blocks, because there's only 100 Splendid Sampler blocks, but the extra 10 blocks will be these plus bonus blocks if I do any more bonus blocks. But yeah, so let's do this tomorrow. Ooh, this would be really interesting sashing, wouldn't it? That's an interesting idea. I mean, you could do this for the border too, but sashing would be pretty interesting. Let me close this up and we can kind of see maybe what that would be like. So sashing, it could be just really thin like that. That'd be pretty interesting. Because the thing is, I could continue to cut this. So I could have made this a bigger fabric and then cut it into pieces. I didn't have to cut it in a square. I could cut it yet into little things like this. And, if this is one of the blocks, then that would frame it up. That would be pretty interesting. That'd be pretty snazzy. Maybe I'll have to do like a little, if I do an extra block or something, or maybe I'll do a couple extra blocks and then try that sashing with that. But that'd be pretty interesting. And then let's say throw another block next to it. I went this way, so this would be the only busy thing that we see. Could be cool. So anyway, that's what we'll do tomorrow. We'll take care of all these and the bunny embroidery. But I think we'll call it a night for tonight. So I'm going to flip you around, and then you can see just how small these ladybugs are. Hello again. All right, so here is the finished embroidery. But yes, that is how small these are. Teeny, 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 tiny. Nope. They're so little. Actually, everything just feels little. Oh, let's look at these close up. I just think the texture on these French knots and colonial knots are the best. It's gonna be awesome. And tomorrow I'll also show you, after we take the Fabri-Solvy off of this, I'll show you how to press your embroidery so you don't flatten all your stitches, because we are gonna want to run an iron over this to get all these kinks and everything out, and the iron's actually gonna dry out our fabric. But we don't want to lose all that texture. Look how high these knots are. We don't want to lose that texture. So I'll show you how to press it and not squish them down. So we'll do that tomorrow too. And this, yay! So all right, this will go up on YouTube tonight, guys, at Penguin and Fish Movies. And if you want to check back to just, again, if you want to see the difference between the French knot and the colonial knot, that can be a reference for you guys if you want to see that again. And I will be here tomorrow. And just a reminder, my Sunday through Tuesday is going to be a big old question mark if I'm going to be here. So tomorrow might be my last night for a couple days because my family's coming back into town, and then my painting class is on Tuesday. But I'll do a scope after the painting class again. So, all right, I will see you tomorrow. Have a great evening and start to your weekend. Good night, guys.